to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thakur. Good morning, one and all. So let's face the allegations one by one. So punctum to NLD, the topic for my discussion today, clarity of the surgical anatomy. Now, as we have heard, what we fear is the blood that is associated with the DCR surgery. It's time consuming. Let us see how we can reduce it. And for this, we need to brush up our anatomy a little bit because we need to know our anatomy beginning from not only the surgical procedure, but also when we are inserting the nasal pack when we are giving our blocks. So this is a structure which we are all familiar with. The pathway, it starts from the punctum. You have the canaliculus, you have the sac out here draining the NLD draining into the inferior meatus. But in DCR, when we make an opening over here, the opening is at the level of the middle meatus. Now, before proceeding to the actual surgery, let us have in our mind a sequential dissection of what are the structures that we encountered while doing the surgery. First, obviously, is the skin where we give the incision, and when the skin is opened up, we get the orbicularis where we need to do blunt dissection so as to preserve the pumping action. And then we expose the medial palpebral ligament, and this MPL, when we try to disinsert it, it immediately opens up the periosteum, and then we get the bone, and on the other side of the bone, we have the nasal mucosa. So this is the sequence of dissection that we have. Now, are these values important, like canaliculus 8 to 10 millimeter, lacrimal sac 12 to 15 millimeter, you have the NLD, which is 12 to 18 millimeter? Yes, definitely this is important because we need to know these dimensions while doing our probing, because whenever we insert our probe, we should never insert it more than 4 centimeters. So initially, it's a good practice to mark the probe at 4 centimeters so that we don't overdo this. Now, what role does anatomy have in our nasal packing? Because it guides us to the direction of the probe, which should be the forceps should be directed superiorly, posteriorly, and inferiorly, because our main idea is to cause a blanching of the nasal mucosa to reduce the bleeding. So it's towards the center of the roof of the orbit and the medial canthus. So if we go too superiorly, what happens? We may break the cribriform plate, and if we go too medially, we may land up in the pharynx. So we have to be careful about this. So MPL is a very important structure in DCR, and identification of this helps us to open up the periosteum. Like I have already stated, the direction of the nasal packing forceps is in the direction of the MPL. And also when we go for a single point block in DCR, where we need to give the injection just medial to the medial canthus, it's again where the MPL is there. So we need to brush up our embryology a little bit so that we don't miss on the congenital anomalies that may be associated with the lacrimal apparatus. And the story begins at 32 days of embryonic gestation, when we have the maxillary and the frontonasal processes and the ectoderm being buried inside as the epithelial cord, which begins its canalization at 4th month of gestation. The membranes are there at the superior and the inferior end. The punctal membranes are usually open at full term, and at the inferior end of the NLD, we have the membrane of Hessner, which remains imperforate for up to 70% of newborns, but usually open up in 1 month's time. The clinically relevant parts, the most important is the punctum, which we know is a relatively avascular structure. And even if the punctum is stenosed, we can make out the position of the punctum by its avascularity. And the inferior punctum, we know it's just 0.5 millimeter lateral to the superior punctum because of the disproportionate in the growth of the maxillary bone as well as the frontal bone. Again, the canalicular opening, when we have the opening of the common canaliculus into the lacrimal sac, we have a valve of Rosenmuller, not much significant, but we have to remember that some patients may come with the complaints of air gushing out through their punctum when they blow the nose. So this has to be kept in mind. Now, another important area is the bones that surround this part. So we have the lacrimal bone. We just adjacent to it, this bluish color is your ethmoidal bone, and lower part we have the maxilla. Superiorly, we have the frontal bone. So the lacrimal fossa, it is bounded. Anteriorly, you have the anterior lacrimal crest, which is formed by the maxilla. Posteriorly, we have the posterior lacrimal crest, which is formed by the lacrimal bone. And this is narrower in women, and the fossa is widest at its base. Now, there is another faint groove which is present just anterior to your fossa, and this is the sutura nota that lodges the small twigs of the infraorbital artery. So we have to be careful as it may also lead to bleeding. Now, the osteotomy is created, in this part, that is where the lacrimal fossa lies. So anteriorly, you can extend your osteotomy up to the anterior lacrimal crest, including it. And posteriorly, it's up to the posterior lacrimal crest, but excluding it. And superiorly, it is at the where just above the MPL, and inferiorly where the sac meets the NLD. Now we can go more inferiorly, we can go more anteriorly, but we cannot go posteriorly because here we have the ethmoid and it may lead to bleeding from the ethmoidal mucosa. We cannot go superiorly because we may open up the cranial cavity. So this frontal ethmoidal suture is an important demarcation because bony dissection superior to it will expose the dura of our cranial cavity. Lacrimal fossa is nothing but it is the periorbita that surrounds the lacrimal sac, and in between the fossa and the sac, we have the venous plexus that continues as the venous plexus of the NLD. Placement of the incision is important because it is here that we have an angular vein 5 to 7 millimeter from the medial canthus. So we either place the incision medially 3 to 4 millimeter, or we will place it more laterally at around 9 to 10 millimeter, and the safest incision is over the anterior lacrimal crest. Now, understanding of the nasal and paranasal sinuses enhances our knowing of the surgical relationship, but it is more important when we are doing the endolaser DCR, endonasal DCR. Laterally, we have the turbinates, and when we are doing the DCR, it opens at the anterior lip of the middle turbinate. And in case of endoscopic approach, the ostium is a little bit much more inferior. Now, tracing of the orbital rim, if we go through the posterior lacrimal crest, we follow the rim up and superiorly, then laterally, and then we swirl it up superiorly, we get the anterior lacrimal crest. And this helps us in performing the nerve block because the infratrochlear nerve is the first nerve to be blocked because it supplies the lacrimal apparatus. So here we trace the inferior, so we need to imagine the spiral over here. We trace the inferior orbital rim, we reach up to the anterior lacrimal crest. At the upper end, and where the MPL lies, we go posteriorly to the periosteum. We draw a little bit, inject here, come back, change the direction without moving out into the nasal area. So here we block the external branch of the anterior ethmoidal nerve and also the anterior lacrimal crest. And here we have another approach for the ethmoidal nerve. It's blocking it by the transcaruncular approach, and the infraorbital is at the junction of the medial 1/3 and the lateral 2/3. So with this much of the anatomy, maybe now we are successful. We can successfully perform a successful and a stressful DCR. Over to the next part of the proceedings. Thank you.